Today I'm rebuilding the Seattle Mariners, and I only have 3 seasons to win a World Series, but they have one of the cheapest ownership groups in baseball, so I'm going to have a very limited budget to work with, which will make it much more difficult to become baseball's best team and to live out my childhood dream of seeing the Mariners win a championship. Seattle has made some moves this offseason, but aside from signing Mitch Garver to be their DH, there's nothing that truly moves the needle, so this may be a difficult challenge, but we were off to a decent start on opening day, as newcomer Luke Raley hit an opposite field single to bring up their big free agent signing Mitch Garver, who slapped another hit through the infield to put runners at the corners, so the top of our order was actually playing pretty well, and Julio Rodriguez popped this one up deep to score the first run of the game on the sac fly. We were really lucky to have an ace like Luis Castillo, who should keep us in this game, but I spoke too soon because he gave up 2 runs in the 3rd inning, so the Mariners needed to rally, and JP Crawford really got a hold of this one, but even though he doesn't have much power in his bat, he sent this pitch all the way over the fence for the game-tying home run. Castillo settled back in, so this game remained tied as France got aboard, and we were hitting McKenzie well, but the bottom of our order was brutal, so we would eventually need to upgrade from Rojas, Arias, and Haniger because they'd already left multiple runners on base as Raley got aboard again, and Mitch Garver was already looking like a good free agent signing, giving his team the lead. Luis Castillo was still throwing some filthy stuff, so we had a chance to extend our lead, and 7-hitter Josh Rojas delivered a huge double, and shortly after, Mitch Haniger came up big to score him on another extra base hit as the Guardians were in their bullpen, and we were looking to close this game out with another run to pick up a big win on opening day. We would go on to split the series with them, leading up to a matchup with the undefeated Angels, who would be a huge early test for our offense. We had loaded bases facing our division rival, and France pulled this one to left for a sacrifice fly to bring up Mitch Haniger with 2 outs, and he obliterated this pitch, carrying it all the way back to the wall for Mike Trout, who made the catch. Then Bryan Woo was not off to a good start on the mound for us, so we were trailing Los Angeles, and Luke Raley smashed this double into right, but that wouldn't matter if we couldn't score him, and thankfully this weak blooper from Dylan Moore got the job done. We tied the game, but we weren't done yet as Arias blasted this one into center field where Mike Trout gave chase but whiffed on the dive, and we added to the rally with JP Crawford getting in on the action as we could make a huge statement by winning our first division series, but Woo gave up another 3 runs, and it was crazy that there had already been 9 scored between each team through 3 innings, so this one's clearly gonna come down to the wire as we tied it up, but there was still 1 out with a runner at 3rd base, and that was an ugly swing that basically acted as a sacrifice bunt to score another. Bryan Woo had been bad today, but he just struck out Mike Trout, which turned into his best inning yet and gave our offense a chance to extend our lead, as the rally was off to a good start with Luke Raley doubling, followed by a Dylan Moore RBI, so we won this game and completed a series sweep, which bumped us up to 1st place in our division. We were down 1 in the 9th in our next game, but Mitch Garver just hit a no-doubter into left center for our clutchest play of the season, as we were battling to hold on to our division lead, and Julio Rodriguez went deep to give us back-to-back home runs. That victory gave us another series win, but we proceeded to lose 5 straight games, falling to 3rd place in the AL West, and I was starting to worry that the bottom of our lineup wasn't good enough for us to compete. This was another rough game against the Oakland A's, and Josh Rojas made good contact with 2 outs, but it couldn't get down, and we took another loss, which brought us even closer to last place, so I was not excited to be up against the World Series champs as we were in a tie game, and of course our bullpen gave up a 9th inning run, so they were trying to close us out as Arias obliterated this baseball, hitting this one way deep into left field, but he was clearly too early on the pitch. We really needed that home run to count because we were down to our last out, and Mitch Garver was unable to be a hero as we had a brutal first month of the season, so we needed to fix our offense, which started with not paying Mitch Haniger $14.5 million to hit 179. I'm gonna trade him, but the best way to do that was to package him with a good young player like Bryan Woo, and I was actually surprised that we were getting good trade offers, but my favorite move was definitely to send him to the Cardinals for Lars Nootbaar because he's a 25-year-old plus hitter who was definitely having the best year of his career. I went ahead and made the move for our new starting left fielder, but I also decided to pick up a decent bullpen arm for our backup catcher Sebi Zavala because we had to get another pitcher after trading Woo. We were taking on the World Series champs after making a huge trade for Lars Nootbaar, and we were down 2-0 as our new addition had a chance to get us on the board, but unfortunately he got underneath this one, so this game remained scoreless, but Mitch Garver went the other way, driving this one deep into right field and rocketed this ball off the wall for a double to bring up Cal Raleigh, who got a pitch to hit and absolutely obliterated it to tie the game. Overcoming Texas will likely be the hardest part of this rebuild, but this game was neck and neck in the top of the 6th, and Julio was up to bat, but he whiffed at a curveball, so this was just another scoreless inning as Texas finally broke through in the 7th. We were suddenly playing from behind as we got got 2 aboard with 0 outs, so this was a very good time for our newcomer, Lars Nootbaar, to deliver an RBI, and luckily for us, our bats showed up in a big way as J-Rod went oppo on the very next pitch, and his opposite field power scored 3 more runs. That 7th inning breakthrough helped us win the game, but it was our only victory of the series, so we stayed 3 games under 500. The Phillies offered us a trade the next day, and while I don't usually take CPU deals, Garrett Stubbs would be a decent bench bat, and they only wanted a deep potential prospect for him, so I made the trade for a player who had hit well in his limited opportunities, but JP Crawford was really our only starter who was having an amazing year, and I was definitely concerned about Julio and Cal Raleigh's terrible play. Also, our young closer Munoz was struggling with a 5.4 ERA, while both of our top 2 pitchers were not having good seasons, so it was very clear that we needed better production from our young core. We were in extra innings against the Astros, but Jose Altuve just called game with this missile down the line, so our season's in jeopardy, and we were in real trouble at the All-Star break, but thankfully we won 7 games in a row coming out of it, so we were only the second team out of the wild card round, which made me feel like I needed to make another risky move to help us get over the hump, and I traded our top pitching prospect for Jared Walsh and another bullpen arm. However, these moves wouldn't matter if we weren't a better team, and we were in extra innings against the Diamondbacks where Luis Arias immediately came through to score a run, but the Mariners weren't done scoring as JP Crawford launched a double into right center field to score another, so those 2 runs got us a big win, and we were only 2 games out of 500 as the trade deadline was here, and I was looking at the block one more time to see if there were any players worth acquiring. The one guy who really caught my attention was Jose Urquidy because he would be cheap for the next 3 years, and we really needed a 5th starter, so thankfully the Astros just wanted one decent prospect for him. That trade meant that we didn't need Anthony Desclafani anymore, so I shipped him and his $12 million contract to the Rockies in exchange for Brendan Rodgers. I definitely felt that we were a better team after making those moves, but we were deadlocked with a really good Orioles team with a chance to walk this one off, but it wasn't gonna happen. So we would need extras if we wanted to finish this one, and it didn't take long for newcomer Jared Walsh to walk it off, and that was the type of win that could raise the confidence of any team trying to make the playoffs. We were suddenly only 1 game below 500, and we were 5 games out of the wild card with just over a month to go. The Astros were trying to keep us out of the playoffs, but we struck first in the 3rd inning with the Luis Arias triple that scored a run. However, we weren't done as JP Crawford blasted an RBI double into the right center gap, so we had a 2-0 lead, and the rally only got better because Mitch Garver launched a 3-run bomb to opposite field as we earned a huge win. The Mariners were 69-64 to start September, but would need to make up a 3-game gap in the wild card race by winning close matchups like this one against the Mets, where we tied it up in the 7th and forced extra innings where a Julio Rodriguez sac fly gave us the lead and the win. Shortly after, we put together a 6-game win streak, so this series against the Angels was very important if we wanted to make the playoffs, and we started the game off with 3 first-inning singles, which should have been great, but auto base running decided to send the runner home, and he was thrown out, but thankfully our pitching didn't let the Angels take advantage of that mistake, and Arias scored our first run on this sacrifice fly, so it was the 3rd inning where we already had 6 hits, and Big Dumper just got our 7th on this solo shot. However, Urquidy gave up a home run to get them back within 1, but thankfully we kept mashing as Josh Rojas delivered a triple, and I had been really surprised with how well he played this season, so we had a 3-1 lead, but thankfully Cal Raleigh had a big game hitting his 2nd dinger as we defeated our division rival and would go on to sweep them, which officially put us in the wild card. Then to my surprise, we extended our win streak to 15 games with another 2 sweeps, so we were fighting to climb the playoff standings, but we had to face the Rangers, and Julio Rodriguez got our offense going as we were down 1-0 and 2 groundouts would give us the lead, but the Rangers would eventually go on top in the 7th, so we needed a clutch inning, and Julio got aboard, but Jared Walsh immediately hit into a double play, which allowed Texas to break our 15-game winning streak, but thankfully that loss didn't stop us from finishing the season strong. We were facing off against Baltimore in the wild card round, and we hit 2 singles to start the game, and Cal Raleigh continued to emerge as our team MVP because his double got us on the board, but it would have scored 2 runs if it hadn't hopped the fence, and the Orioles would answer with 4 runs in the 2nd inning as Castillo had a meltdown and our bats went cold in a loss. The Mariners were already facing elimination and trailed by 1 run until Garver went deep, so we retook the lead while Kirby locked in, and our bats had definitely found their spark in the 2nd game as Raley started the inning with a double before Haggerty went the other way to drive him in as we rode this momentum for the rest of the day to set up a winner-takes-all Game 3, which started off with a Jared Walsh nuke, but our season was suddenly in jeopardy because Baltimore scored 4 runs, but we couldn't give up on our season yet as Garver obliterated this fastball to cut their lead to just 1, and Julio Rodriguez followed up as they hit back-to-back home runs to tie the game. After that, there was no way the Mariners were going to waste that clutch performance from their two best hitters, as Cal would score after blasting a double, and Logan Gilbert avoided our second meltdown of the series, while Big Dumper was back up to the plate, and his second hit of the game was a dinger that helped us advance to the ALDS. Texas stole the division from us, and we weren't gonna let them get away with it, especially because they were our biggest threat in the playoffs, and we smashed 2 bombs in the 3rd inning to help us take game 1, so we already held the series lead, which gave our young team a lot of confidence, and this was the best possible time for us to get on a hot streak, especially against the defending champs, who we easily defeated. The Rays were the only team standing in the way of us getting to the World Series in this rebuild's first season, and game 1 went to extras where their former player Luke Raley doubled against them and would become the winning run in a walk-off thriller, but we continued our momentum to win games 2 and 3, so we had the chance to bust out the brooms in the ALCS and started this game with singles before Mitch Garver hit another dinger. It was crazy that our bats had come alive after struggling so much earlier in the season, and this could become the fastest rebuild in the history of my channel if we can beat Atlanta. We were the World Series underdogs because the Braves were a powerhouse, but we had come too far to give up easily as we scored the first run and Jared Walsh would go yard shortly after to give us a 2-0 lead. This was the best possible start to game 1, but we gave up a home run and I knew their offense could explode at any moment, so luckily Luis Arias answered by hitting a 2 RBI double against Strider to help us secure the win. We had a 5-game winning streak in the playoffs, and I was starting to believe we could beat Atlanta because we began the second game of the series with 2 hits in a row as Julio doubled, but there were 2 outs, so we needed Ty France to step up, and he cleared the bases as our offense was off to another hot start, and Max Fried left a slider over the plate that Julio sent deep into the gap for a second hit, and Sam Haggerty came up clutch, driving him in with 2 outs. Also, rookie Bryce Miller was pitching a gem while our offense kept stepping up as we won game 2 and Miller threw a complete game shutout. I couldn't believe we had caught Atlanta's loaded lineup in a slump, but they had only scored 1 run in the entire series up to this point, and we had a slim 1-0 lead in the 6th inning until Haggerty launched a no-doubter to put us up 3-0 in the World Series. Sweeping the Braves would be a very satisfying way to end this rebuild, but we were facing Spencer Strider. However, he just left that slider over the plate for JP, and our biggest trade addition, Lars Nootbaar, would drive him in on the very next pitch, so we were off to an amazing start, especially considering that there were 0 outs in the 1st inning, and Mitch Garver continued our early rally, but Atlanta was desperate to get back in this game, so they cut our lead to just 1 run, but Luke Raley killed all of their confidence with just 1 swing. We were on pace to run away with this win, and I didn't understand how our offense had turned itself around this quickly, but I definitely couldn't complain because this was the most satisfying game I'd ever played as I took over the Seattle Mariners and finally gave their franchise a championship in just 1 season. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this rebuild. Please drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and click right here if you want to see more content.